Dudettes. Welcome to the podcast you've been waiting for. Great perspective and exclusive interviews.
It's a hard job for those guys because it's happening fast.
The kind of Saints insight and fun commentary you won't get anywhere else.
We've got plenty of technology to speed things up.
It's time to kick off your Been There, Done That Saints podcast, where we hand it off to our host, Mike Neighbors, and Super Bowl winning linebacker, Scott Shanlin.
Proud of these guys.
Those damn Rams. First the no call, now the no show. Matt Stafford, thanks for nothing. Welcome to your Been There, Done That podcast. I'm your host, Mike Neighbors. I'm going to bring in my crew, of course, Super Bowl winning linebacker Scott Shanley and our esteemed producer, Justin Thomas. I don't know about you guys. I'm glad we're doing this a little bit after the fact. I needed a cooling off period. I needed some time to kind of get away because the Saints take care of business. And after 58 different starters, 4 quarterbacks, an evacuation, a partridge in a pear tree, Sean Peyton should be the damn coach of the year. Shanley, I need a little break because I think I'm more measured now than I would have been right after the game.
Yeah, can we all agree? You know, you're right. The Rams no call. There's no love in our hearts for the Rams. But Matthew Stafford has quickly elevated to my most hated list. Like, come on, dude. You were brought there to win games like that. Win games for the Saints so the Saints could get in the playoffs. And he just goes out there and lays an egg. And my timeline of the games is I'm watching the Saints-Falcons. Saints go right on the field and score. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. I check over. I look at the 49ers-Rams score. And quickly, it's 17-0. I'm like, oh, I don't need to pay attention to that game. Let's focus on this Saints-Falcons.
Right.
Saints are rolling, right? And so I'm like, checking this other score. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And my attention starts going from one game to the other. And by the second half of both games, I knew the Saints had it. They were controlling the Falcons. I knew there was no doubt that the Saints were going to win that game. I'm sitting there watching the freaking 49ers come back and Jimmy G looking like Tom Brady going out there and beating the Rams. It was so hard to watch. It was just such a defeating feeling knowing that the Rams had that game won up 17-0. They just faded away with all the talent they have.
I'm in the press box on the road, obviously, in Atlanta, watching the game, the Niners-Rams game, with the hierarchy of the Saints and some media members. Jeff Ireland's standing right next to me. And it's like you say, Shanley, this wave of emotion. Justin, you're at home. How are you absorbing all this?
You know, the broadcast, it was great because they had the score in the top left corner the whole time. So I was able to easily keep an eye on the score. I never turned to the other game, to the 49ers game. I watched the whole Saints game and then turned over at overtime. But it was so frustrating because we had to do what we needed to do to get in, and we did that. We knew they would. And the Rams, having the lead, blew it, had that horrible throw, Stafford in overtime to lose it, way underthrew it. It's just really frustrating.
Shanley, and I agree, Justin, but you know what? It's just heartbreak after heartbreak in different ways for Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints, and obviously it's not all their fault. Some of it is their fault. But boy, since 2017, these postseasons are brutal, Shanley, in so many different ways, in many different ways.
Yeah, and this was it was a playoff game, so it was win and get in, and you need a little bit of help, obviously, and so that mindset of the Saints going in, it felt like the playoffs had started a week early. You're right. There's been so much disappointment. You go back to 2017, the miracle in Minneapolis, wherever they call that, and then the no call against the Rams. That Saints team would have went to the Super Bowl and I believe beat the Patriots team. So there's been a ton of disappointment, and it's just hard because these windows in the NFL don't last forever. This defense is not going to be assembled like this forever. You're going to go through rebuild modes. You're going to go through revamping your team over and over again, and success is not guaranteed to anybody. We've been fortunate that we've been able to see a winning team. Even everything this team has gone through this year, the fact they were even in it was amazing. 58 different starters, 4 different quarterbacks. Not a lot of teams could do that, but you're right. It's so much frustration. And I give Saints fans credit because Saints fans brought me back to reality. Saints fans didn't really, for a moment, they whined and cried just like I did about the Rams not taking care of business. But quickly, I recognize Saints fans said, you know what, it's our fault. You know, we didn't beat the Giants. We didn't beat the Falcons. Like, quickly, Saints fans brought me back to reality. Like, you know what? We could have controlled our own destiny and didn't do it. So when you can take the responsibility on yourself and not start blaming other people, I think that helps you cope with losses.
Yeah, I agree. Here's the thing, though. And we said this on the podcast previously. When they lost to the Giants, they're going to pay for that down the road. When they lost to the Falcons, they're going to pay for that down the road. But here's my thing. The NFL kind of has its way of evening out. I never thought they'd blow the doors off the Packers in week one. I
Yeah.
never thought they would shut out the Bucks. I never thought they would sweep the Bucks. So I kind of took that with the whole body of work in the season as well, Shanley.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's a great way to look at it because when the season started, we all would have sat here and said, well, we're going to beat the Falcons at home. We're going to beat the Giants at home. But beating the Packers, I don't know. Beating the Buccaneers twice, I don't know. So you're right. It definitely evened out in the way we all anticipated the season going. There were a lot of people who predicted, at worst, 9 wins for this team, 10, 11 wins. But that was thinking that was even predicting that or not predicting that was thinking with having Jameis Winston, having a consistency at quarterback, having a consistency of starters, and that just didn't happen all year. So I think this team overcame a lot. This organization, this locker room showed you the character they have, but in the end just came up one game too short in making their ultimate goal of making the playoffs.
Okay, you played for Sean Payton. You've covered Sean Payton his whole tenure in New Orleans. Is this the best coaching job he's done ever?
I wouldn't say ever, and I know, I mean, against all obstacles. I mean, you go down the list of things they went through. I'm always going to say the best coaching job ever is when you win a Super Bowl or you win games. That's just the natural part of it and how you judge coaches. But against all odds, I definitely think you can make that argument. I mean, evacuating for a hurricane and then missing your coaching staff in the second game of the year against Carolina, playing your first game on the road in Jacksonville against Green Bay. I mean, there were tons of different COVID things, injuries, missing 2 all-pro tackles for a majority of the season. The list went on, and to sit there and be 9-8, nobody will talk about this years from now. I don't know if people even remember it because that's just how we are. We always remember the winning seasons. But I definitely think if you looked at Coach of the Year candidate and you actually measured it by obstacles you overcame, I don't know how you wouldn't say he was Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I look back at his tenure, and here's how I will break it down. I will say '06 was his best year. I mean, you were right there. You didn't know if Brees was going to be okay. You had 3 new linebackers, including yourself, who didn't play together until the first game. You're breaking in a young offensive line. I mean, everybody on both sides of the football. I would say '06, '09, but this is third for me. Justin, do you have your favorite Peyton coaching seasons if you would rank them off the
You
top of
think
your head?
'06 first? And then
It's something about that '06 year. I mean, you guys were coming back from obviously so many unknowns after Hurricane Katrina. Even the Superdome was kind of an unknown. The football team, I remember doing sideline that preseason and meeting with Sean Payton with Tim Brando, who was calling the preseason games. He brought out his depth chart and he's breaking it down. We met with him for an hour. And he didn't really know much about that offensive line. I mean, he knew guys like Jeff Fain were good, but he didn't know he didn't know how good Jari Evans was. He pointed to a guy.
Yeah.
He pointed to Colston. I think this guy, he's looked good in camp. He should be pretty good. But there were so many unknowns that I still put '06 up there as his best coaching year.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Justin. I was just saying, I agree. I liked Mike's rankings, and I didn't really think about it in terms of his entire career. But yeah, in '06, 40-some new guys on the roster, and he was a big part of the reason I got traded there, and a lot of people got brought in. So you got to give him a lot of credit in assembling that roster that year too.
And I was going to say I would flip it. I think the fact that you won the Super Bowl in '09 puts that ahead of '06. But I would do '09, '06, and then probably 2021.
It just shows how good Peyton is. I mean, you look at coaches around the league. I look at LaFleur in Green Bay, and I see he's off to this great start, which he is. But the guy that he's tied with he just broke the record, is George Seifert, who was not a great head coach, who inherited everything from Bill Walsh, went to Carolina and was a flat-out bust. I want to see a LaFleur without an Aaron Rodgers. We've seen Sean Payton without a Drew Brees. We've seen him with 4 different guys this year. And I wanted to throw this out there. If the Saints would have won, that I think really Sean Payton should have done this if they would have advanced Shanley and played the Rams. The way Trevor Siemian, the pattern this year is you start Ian Book, okay, against the Rams, and you put Siemian in there halfway through the second quarter, and I think they win that game.
That was so hilarious on social media. Everybody's like, they have these pictures of Trevor Siemian as a starter versus Trevor Siemian as a backup coming in the game and saving the day. It's almost like those old cable commercials of, it It was absolutely hilarious, but I give Trevor a lot of credit. It's hard to dispute that. There's a lot more pressure on you when you're the starter and teams game plan for you, and they're like, okay, this is this guy's weakness. Here's how we have to attack him. Versus coming off the bench and teams aren't really preparing you for you all week. Trevor did a great job. I mean, comes in the game, and shout out to Coach Peyton. Trevor comes in the game and he doesn't hand the ball off. He doesn't throw a screen. He goes right for the jugular, throws it to the end zone, and Trevor looked as good throwing the ball in that game as good as he did all year. So his confidence was high, and he really did a nice job.
You know what? Speaking of quarterbacks and the Rams and former Georgia quarterbacks, the way Stafford played, give me Stetson Bennett down the stretch against the Niners, Shanley, right? Come on.
Maybe with Stetson Bennett, at least Stetson Bennett could throw a deep ball to a wide open Odell Beckham and not underthrow it. And if he did, at least you could say, well, at one time he was a walk-on instead of he was the number one overall pick in the draft, who we gave up a ton of capital for to save us.
Oh my goodness, how frustrating! And here's the thing about that game too, is underneath all of the Stafford stuff and the defensive breakdowns for the Rams is the fact they get the ball back late in that game and they hand off to Sony Michel 3 straight times and punt the ball.
Yeah.
That, to me, Mike, that is an indictment on Matthew Stafford. More than anything else that went on throughout that game, and I agree 100% with you. You get to third down late in the game, and you traded a ton of draft capital for this guy. You told everybody in the world that Jared Goff is the reason we're not good. Jared Goff is not good. He took you to a Super Bowl, but he's not good enough. We need this guy. And you hand the ball off. That was a major indictment where that coaching staff saw their quarterback.
Oh, my goodness. You know, we're going to get into the Saints moving forward here. I have some trade possibilities for Russell Wilson I want to throw out in my crew here, and we have more likely later. But, you know, I want to just recap Atlanta real quick because I feel for Shanley because every year Shanley's so kind to the media, great in our podcast. Shanley has become the spokesperson for hating Atlanta. If you're a Saints fan, you're the go-to guy, Shanley. I don't know how you are if you take the family to Atlanta. I don't know if you want to take the family to Atlanta. But what I felt bad for you on top of the Saints not making the playoffs is, Shanley, could you enjoy your Atlanta win like you usually do? It wasn't the same, was it?
Yeah, you're right. It was a little bittersweet because I just told you the conflict I had going back. I had both games on, but my attention was on different TV. So I didn't give the proper respect to a beatdown in Atlanta like I normally would have because I was so worried about the stupid Rams 49ers game. But it felt good just knowing that there were hardly any Falcons fans in attendance again, which didn't surprise me. It was almost like we made up for that first game of the year not having a home game. We made it our own home game in Atlanta with all the Saints fans. So you know, that game went about the way I thought it would. And the first drive, having an opening drive going right down the field, took away all the uneasiness I had. Maybe we get a dome repeat. Once I saw the Saints go right down the field, I felt pretty good about that game.
You know how I felt too? Yeah, that was the best opening drive of the year, sans maybe the Packers game. I can't remember what happened there, but it seems like they scored on every little instance in that game. But here's the thing. When Taysom was dealing early on and playing well before he got hurt, I looked at a buddy of mine in the press box and I said, you know, Trevor Simeon's got to be thinking, damn, I wish I had this offensive line when I was out. I wish I had Alvin Kamara. I wish I had Traquan playing like this. And lo and behold, he would get his chance. But it just shows you how good that Saints offensive line is. And when they're healthy, how good this football team can be.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, when you look at all the things that went wrong for the Saints this year, everybody's going to always start with the quarterback position, Jameis getting hurt. Everybody's going to point to the wide receiver position, not getting Michael Thomas on the field for one rep. But to me, the biggest thing that this team dealt with, the biggest adversity this team dealt with was missing their linemen. Andres Pete hardly played this year. Armstead was gone for majority of the year. He was hurt a ton. Ramczyk missed a ton of games. Those are three guys who make the Pro Bowl, and they make the Pro Bowl a lot. And when those guys are out there, the Saints are the best offensive line group in the league, and it happens so fast. You age so fast in the NFL. Injuries happen. Things happen. Just 4 years ago, everybody looked at the Dallas Cowboys offensive line like they were the greatest thing since sliced bread. And Zeke Elliott is running behind them and through big holes. And all of a sudden, they're an aging line. They're rebuilding. So it happens fast. And it's going to be interesting to see going forward because of the salary cap, just how many of these guys they're going to bring back and remain in attendance on that offensive line.
All right, let's get to that. Tyron Armstead, obviously, when healthy, an elite left tackle, arguably the best in the NFL, certainly up there. If you're the GM and you know the cap numbers are not good once again because it's the credit card the Saints keep paying to tie these guys up and extend the deals. I mean, do you bring back Tyron Armstead? Is that a simple answer? Is that pretty complicated right now, Shanley?
Oh my gosh. Do I want him back? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody wants him back because he is one of the best tackles in the league. Can you bring him back? I don't think so. I don't know how listen, there's a lot smarter people than me in the Saints front office who have been able to do restructuring and different things with the cap number to automatically make millions of dollars disappear, but you have to make over $60 million disappear. Now, you're going to do it, but you're going to get rid of really good players by doing it. And everybody who points to last year, well, the Saints were over 100 million last year and they did it. Yeah, they did it, but do you remember how many good players left the building?
Yeah.
Jared Cook left the building. Emmanuel Sanders left the building. Drew Brees' contract left the building, although they still have some dead money. Go to the defensive side of the ball. Janoris Jenkins, who went and started for the Titans, who was a really good player. Those type of contracts get dropped. When you drop those type of contracts, you're dropping really good players and depth to your team. So there's no doubt there's going to be great players that have to leave this team, and Tyron Armstead could be one of them.
Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of pleased with the rookie class as a whole. I think Peyton Turner, before he got hurt, had potential. You know, Pete Warner stepped up at linebacker when needed this year, and Paulson Adebo, tied for the team lead in interceptions. That's the guy who didn't play his last year in college. I think that the rookie class has some potential, Shanley, a little bit.
I would agree with you. And Adebo, Adebo, what Odell Beckham did for the wide receiver positions, I walk around, all these kids say, man, I want Odell it. Throw me an Odell. I want to see DBs say, I want to Adebo it. I want a one-hand DB catch. I want to Adebo it. This dude, he played really good from the start of the season to the end of the season. And the thing about Paulson is he played out at Stanford. Not a lot of attention was given to him playing out in the Pac-12. We give a lot of attention to the SEC guys. So when he comes out, he opted out of his last year, didn't play at Stanford. So it's been 2 years between him playing any football. The Saints draft him high. You look at the measurables, and it's like, man, this guy's got good size. Now let's see what he can do. Intercepts Aaron Rodgers game one, and just he had a great rookie season. For the expectations that people had versus what they didn't have in Paulson, not knowing anything about him, I thought he had a really solid season, and he set the bar really high for himself going forward. It's not easy playing opposite Marshawn Lattimore in this defense.
Absolutely. In our Your View Saints Tonight and Saints Game Day shows, we get exclusive interviews, and I had Paulson Adebo one-on-one. He's really mature for his age, too. Really smart young man, and I really like the fact that he's not resting on his laurels. He really was concentrating, I got to get better. He got a taste of it. He wants more. I really liked his attitude a lot. Speaking of the secondary, you have the franchise tag on Marcus Williams. I think you got to bring him back to really solidify a defense overall, Shanley, that's really going to be good because everybody's coming back seemingly next year.
Well, yeah, the defense has been the strength of this team, not only this year. And I think most people said the defense is going to carry this team with Drew Brees gone. But this defense has carried this team since 2017. If you look at the stats, if you look at where the offense has been trending the past 4 or 5 years, the defense has been the strength of this football team. And that's why they did a great job locking up guys like Marshawn Lattimore, going out in free agency, getting a Demario Davis, it's great to see Davenport emerging. He just needs to stay healthy. He can be a dominant force, just stay healthy. Marcus Williams, again, he's going to be a guy because of the salary cap, a player you want. They love Marcus. Mature, a leader, guys on that team in the locker room love him. But can you bring him back? Because if Marcus Williams, who they franchised last year on a 1-year deal, paid him a top 5 free safety salary because they had to, if he hits the market, they are going to throw tons of money at him. Somebody's going to sign him to a deal that you won't be able to match. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's a guy that the Saints can bring back because I know they want to bring him back.
It's interesting. Marcus Williams, part of that 2017 draft class. All of those guys have never had a year where they didn't make the postseason. So this is definitely new territory for the Williams, the Camaras, the Ramcheks, obviously Lattimore's of the world. All right, we're going to get to my Russell Wilson potential trade deals here in a second and more likely. But first, the $1 million question, is Michael Thomas going to be back next year, Shanley? What say you?
I said yes. There's people around me that are somewhat in the know that don't think Michael Thomas will ever play another down in a Saints uniform. I want to believe that Michael Thomas is going to be a Saint. I want to believe that we haven't seen him in 2 years. The Saints rewarded him, gave him a ton of money. I want to believe that Michael Thomas is going to be a Saint because I think he's a competitor. I think he wants to go out there and prove that just because he had Drew Brees, it wasn't a fluke. And you're also a team that you don't have stability at quarterback. Can you go and ship a guy like Michael Thomas off? Yes, I know the salary cap, you may have to unload his salary, and that would be a major reason. But can you get rid of a talent like Michael Thomas when you don't have stability at the quarterback position. That's the biggest reason why I think they have to find any way they can to bring Michael Thomas back.
And you look at the parts around Michael Thomas, right? You have the Deontay Harris's, Traquan Smith, who had a great game to finish the season. He's only going to make those guys better. I mean, to me, you got to mend this fence somehow. You got to make it work. I know there's a lot of, there's a lot that's happened the past year. But here's my prediction, Justin. We're rolling on this, right? So we can play this down the road.
We are.
Okay.
Yep.
Jamison Williams. You hate to see that for the Alabama wide receiver in a game where so much is on the line, not only national title wise, but personally in the NFL draft coming up. What about Jameis to Jamison Williams on one side and Michael Thomas on the other side? He may slip in the draft now with this injury. What if the Saints get a guy like that and Michael Thomas? That would be very interesting, Shanley, for a team that has the running game, that has the offensive line, that has the defense.
Wow. I mean, that scenario would be the best you could hope for with everything we mentioned about the salary cap position. If you could bring back Jameis Winston, and I assume it'll be another 1-year prove-it deal, so you have a former number 1 overall pick, you find a way to squeeze Michael Thomas back with that salary, maybe restructure his deal. If you know you want Michael, roll those numbers out and get him back in the fold, and then having a guy like Jameson Williams fall to you in the draft at 18 because of the injury he sustained. I mean, automatically, talk about going from one of your weaknesses of your team at the wide receiver position to being an immediate strength and putting some terror and some fear into the defenses in the NFC South. Those two on the outside with Jameis Winston, not a cap-heavy contract with Jameis Winston, I think would be pretty nice for the Saints coming this fall.
Yeah, I remember when Willis McGahee had that injury at the U, and he fell in the draft, and the Bills, I think, selected him in the first round, ended up being a great pick for them. I could almost see the Saints picking somebody else at 18 and then maybe trading up, maybe a couple of picks to get Jameson either early in the second round or late in the first. Jameis to Jameson, man. Are you kidding me? Saints marketing. You're loving that. So, we've talked about all this stuff, okay? But I'm going to throw this out there. If they don't want Jameis, and if they're going to really aim high and try to get Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers could be a possibility too. But I'm really concentrating on a Russell Wilson type trade. Maybe. And I'm looking at the barometer here. You have Matthew Stafford last year. The Lions, this is what they received. They received Jared Goff. They received 2 1s, and they received a 3, okay? You're going to have to give away more for Russell Wilson. It's Matthew Stafford, not Russell Wilson, okay? So if it's more than 2 1s and a 3 and a franchise quarterback, off the top of my head, and man, I hate to say this because I love Cam Jordan, but Cam Jordan's getting older and he's got value because he balled out down the stretch, let's face it. What if you throw a Cam Jordan, a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 2 1s, a second, and a third for Russell Wilson? Would you guys do that? And do you think the Seahawks would take that?
Would I do it? I'm saying heck no. Okay. Heck no, I wouldn't do it. Okay. And do I think the Seattle Seahawks would do it? I'm saying no. And the reason I'm saying no is everybody tries to get a franchise quarterback. And once you have one, you don't let them go. You don't let them go for you appease anything they want. If he wants a new deal, he wants a contract extension. If his wife isn't happy there, you find out what will make her happy in Seattle. Like, you do whatever you need to do, because this draft, there's no Andrew Luck, there's no Peyton Manning, there's no consensus number 1 overall pick. To me, this quarterback draft is horrible. I mean, some of these guys shouldn't even be listed in the first round. They're being listed in the first round. I don't think there's a franchise quarterback that they're talking about even in the first round. So you don't get rid of those guys for anything. This is a quarterback-driven league. Once you have one of those guys, I don't care what teams are throwing at you, unless it's something crazy like 6 first-round picks. I don't think you move off guys like that.
Justin, what do you think? Mickey Loomis calls you up. You're the Seattle GM. Hey, I got a great deal for you. We're going to give you Cam Jordan. We're going to give you Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. We're going to give you 2 1s, a 2, and a 3. And obviously, we're going to spread that out over the next 2 drafts, not all in one draft. Do you take that
for Russell Wilson?
For Russell Wilson, who's not a spring chicken anymore either.
If I'm the Seahawks, I agree with Scott. I don't take that.
Dang it! I want to ignite something today.
I mean, it's tempting, but you don't know where you'll be drafting. It's not a guarantee that any of those draft picks will pan out. Cam Jordan's at the end of his career. Tyron Armstead is always banged up. I just think, like Scott said, you have a franchise QB a really good one who's relatively young, I say no.
And to just put, teams go decades without getting one of those guys. And if you don't have one of those guys, you're not going to win games. And I think it's one thing if you have something to give them in return, like maybe a quarterback who's a backup quarterback, almost like a Matt Hasselbeck type, where you can play with him for a while, but there's just the Saints don't have that to offer Seattle to be a bridge to the future.
Yeah, ask Cleveland, ask Cincinnati how much they're loving Joe Burrow right now. I mean, yeah, absolutely. all of that stuff. You mentioned something, Shanley. I'm glad you did, because I was going to talk about this and I may have forgotten. What if Sean Payton just reaches out and makes a drive up to Indy and talks to Andrew Luck? Hey, buddy, you thought about coming back? I'm serious.
I've been thinking that for 2 years. Like it would be a great fit. And then I saw Andrew Luck talking in the pregame with RG3 last night with the motorcycle,
That's what I thought about.
And looks like he hasn't been in a weight room and he looks a little malnourished. I'm like, this guy has no interest in coming back to play football. And so all hopes went out the window when I saw Andrew Luck last night pregame.
God, you and I have been working together too long, because when they said coming up next, Andrew Luck, I'm like, wow, I hadn't thought about that. Maybe Peyton can reach out to him. Oh no.
He looks like he hasn't eaten any protein in about a couple years. I mean, he's withering away. But he sounds happy, and that's what matters.
Yeah, each his own, man. Can you imagine though, Andrew Luck in Peyton's offense, if he was up for it and he was in shape and he was ready to roll,
Yeah, I can imagine. I was imagining at the moment he retired, like, okay, go ahead, get away for a while, go off the reservation with your flip phone, and maybe we'll get back with you, get you down to New Orleans.
Well, man, this has been a fun podcast. We've had a lot of hypotheticals, but we have 3 more. Justin, you know what time it is? We bring back Justin Thomas. More likely, 3 hypotheticals, as I mentioned. We've talked about all the Saints' possibilities moving forward. It's going to be another interesting offseason for the black and gold. But when you talk about trades and you talk about potential moves, Justin, is there an indispensable Saint on this team that you would absolutely positively not move under any circumstance, or is really anything up for grabs? But is there one player you're like, I don't want him going anywhere?
I'm trying to go through the roster real quick. Off the top of my head, I could give you 2. Can I give you 2?
Absolutely.
I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore.
2 good ones there. So that's Justin. You could throw anything at Justin Shanley. That's what he brings to the table right there. But Shanley, if you're Mickey Loomis, is there one, 2? Are there? Just give me the Saints that you're like, I'm not moving these guys at all.
I got an easy answer for you, Mike. There is not one Saint that I wouldn't trade. And it's not because I don't love any of them. Mm-hmm. It's because we need a quarterback. There's not one Saint that I would not trade for a franchise quarterback. And I love Cam. I think Alvin Kamara could be argued as he's the best all-around running back in pro football. But I need a quarterback. And whatever you have to do, whatever stone you have to overturn, you go out and find that guy this offseason. And if it involves trading one of those guys, then you do. And here's my little theory, and I think there's 2 guys that you could possibly peel away from other teams. One is Baker Mayfield, which I don't want, but he's got a lot of upside, and he's on a rookie deal. The other guy I'm going to throw out there is Kirk Cousins. Now, a lot of Saints fans will moan and groan, but when you moan and groan, go ahead and look at this dude's stats. 4,200 yards this year, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's had a 103 quarterback rating or more the last 3 seasons in the NFL. This dude is a good quarterback. What about Cam Jordan going back where his dad played, throwing him in a trade, bringing Kirk Cousins to the Saints?
Man, it's funny. We love Cam Jordan, and we're just throwing him all over the country right now. Seattle, Minnesota. I love you, Cam. I do. I think Kirk Cousins is interesting because, to me, it's like an analogy. If Peyton can do this for Trevor Siemian, what can he do with Kirk Cousins? And what can Kirk Cousins, in turn, do with a Michael Thomas, maybe a Jameson Williams, or a young wide receiver, this offensive line, and Alvin Kamara? I kind of like that. I have no problem with that, really. Or even a Baker Mayfield. I thought Mayfield – I've always – it's something about those Austin quarterbacks in New Orleans, man. Maybe it's something in the water. But seriously, I also think Mayfield made a huge mistake this year because part of his strength is his weakness is he's very alpha, I know more than everybody else. He should have obviously, accepted the deal and had surgery. And he had such a setback this year. But I like both those options. I agree with you. I would trade anybody, but I would have a really hard time trading two guys. Ramczyk, I just think he's young, man. He's going to be such a stud there for so long. And besides this year, he's been very durable for the most part. And Lattimore, man, it would be so hard to lose Lattimore because in the Peyton era, Shanley, I mean, you know how cornerbacks, they're such a premium anyway, but it's been such an Achilles heel, the Peyton era. I think Lattimore, to me, would be the hardest guy. You'd really have to be a good offer to get rid of him. That's
I agree. So, I definitely agree. Those two are young guys, are cornerstone type players in a franchise. But again, I would definitely agree with you. Those two guys would be on my list too if we weren't in such desperate need for a quarterback. And to me, you can find the Saints have done a great job drafting a lineman. You can find a heck of a lineman at 18. I think you can find a heck of a cornerback at 18. And if one of those guys needs to be thrown in as part of a trade to land a franchise quarterback, then I'm sorry, but I'd have to throw him in.
Yeah, and we talked about Cam Jordan. I think Peyton Turner has the potential where, if Marcus Davenport can keep playing the way he's playing. I mean, I love the way this D-line played, obviously, down the stretch. I mean, Onyemata, I mean, they were unbelievable. You hate to lose Cam, but you can't keep everybody. It's the NFL, and it's the Saints, and this cap hell they're in. So, all right, the great thing about a podcast is we can look ahead. We're not a coach or a player. We don't have any rules. I told Justin one indispensable player, he can pick 5. We have no rules in this podcast. And along those same lines, we can make predictions and then we can correct ourselves later. So I'm going to give you a redo right now as we enter the postseason. If you want to stick to your Super Bowl prediction, or you can change it right now. But right now, are you going to stick to your guns, or are you going to change your Super Bowl predictions?
All right. My Super Bowl predictions, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I picked the Bills and the Rams, right?
Yes.
That sounds about right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to change both. I think it's Green Bay all the way, honestly, but I think it's going to be Green Bay, and this next one's tough. Did I see that Drew Brees picked the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl?
No, he just said that that's the team that he is most interested to watch.
Well,
it's funny how
Drew was.
Go ahead.
I think Drew was all over the Bills this year, wasn't he?
But the last pregame show, this is how Twitter.
That's what I'm talking about. The last pregame show.
This is how Twitter gets crazy, because somebody will say something and then it just goes nuts and it's misinterpreted. But Brees basically said the team he is most interested in watching moving forward are the Bengals, because just the way they're playing down the stretch here.
I see. For the AFC, I'm torn. I still like the Bills, but I like what the Titans are doing. You know what? I'll go for the Titans versus Green Bay.
Wow.
I think that would be – I think Titans are playing really good.
Oh, wow. Shanley, what do you think?
I definitely know I picked Green Bay, and the reason I remember picking Green Bay is because it was the first game of the year with the Saints. Saints beat them down, and I thought, man, I'm sticking with the pick. They're going to right the ship. They definitely have righted the ship.
They have. You're right.
And I still think Green Bay is going to win it all. But did I say the Chiefs or the Bills?
You said Chiefs.
I want to say I said the Chiefs.
I think you said Chiefs. I think I was the only one that said Bills.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to keep with that pick. And the Chiefs have not been playing good football, but they have Patrick Mahomes. They do have a home game, and I do think Tennessee is going to get beat in the divisional round. I think I don't know how they've been the number 1 seed. I think part of it's playing Jacksonville twice a year and the Houston Texans twice a year. They're a good team. They're physical. They're well coached. I just don't think they're worthy of a number 1 seed. So I think the Bengals could go there after they beat the Raiders and upset Tennessee. And then you'd have a Bengals at Chiefs NFC or AFC championship game. So, man, I would love to see Bengals versus Packers, but I'm going to go Packers versus Chiefs.
Well, what I really want to see are the Patriots and the Bucks. Now that would be awesome, because if the Patriots beat the Bucks, it would squash all the Tommy stuff from last year. That it wasn't Belichick, it was Brady. That's what I want. I want Belichick to beat the Bucks in the Super Bowl, because that would be the ultimate irony, and it would be the great twists and turns. But that's not going to happen. I agree with Shanley. I like the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs have kind of righted the wrongs. I think Andy Reid's a great coach, makes adjustments, and I think the Packers win it all. I guess we'll have a podcast down the road. But Aaron Rodgers and just the way this team is playing. And I tell you, the interesting thing, guys, is, Aaron Rodgers talks about, Jordan Love, and they're not consulting me. Besides Jordan Love, the Packers have made an awful lot of great moves. I mean, that's a talented football team. They've made some great moves defensively, offensively. I wonder what's going to happen to Aaron Rodgers now. It's going to be really interesting, Shanley, moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going anywhere. It sounds like him and the general manager have mended their relationship. We've all seen Jordan Love enough to know that Jordan Love cannot be trusted to be your franchise quarterback.
Agreed.
So the Packers are forced to give Aaron whatever he wants, and it should be. It would be a great story to have him play his entire career in one franchise. He's earned that right. He deserves that right. And so I hope he finishes his career there. As much as I would love to have him in New Orleans, that possibility looked kind of good 6 months ago. It's definitely not happening anymore.
All right, are we not picking the Bucs because we're still kind of bitter about Jared Cook and what happened last year a little bit?
I just don't know. I just
I
don't
don't
think the
trust
Bucs
them.
are rolling right now the way they were last
agree.
year.
No, I'm just
I
kidding.
think
No, I agree. Though they're getting Fournette back, they're getting Shaq Barrett back, they're getting Jason Pierre-Paul back. The weird thing about that team is, and we haven't discussed this, the Antonio Brown deal. I'm watching Scotty Miller run kind of an end around last week against Carolina. I don't think they ever needed Antonio Brown. I live in Tampa, and a lot of people disagree with me on this. They would have won a Super Bowl last year without Antonio Brown, and I never thought that was a good signing. And come on, NFL, be better than Antonio Brown. Nobody else signed this guy, please. Yeah, he may have issues. Get him some help. I'm sensitive to that. But please, I don't want to see this guy in the league anymore. Shanley, I don't know how you feel about that, but that's just I don't like what I've seen from him, and I don't like a guy like that repeatedly getting chances when he's a bad teammate. Tom Brady. I don't agree with Tom Brady being the unofficial head coach and GM of Tampa and putting his neck out there, but the whole story just really bothers me, and it bothered me from the beginning when they acquired him because I thought, you know what, they're good enough without him. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with you on a couple points. First of all, I think they would have won a Super Bowl without Antonio Brown last year. Missing Chris Godwin is a huge miss for them this year. Yeah. I think Godwin and Evans last year. I think Brady played great. I think Gronk found his youth. But the Tampa Bay did not win a Super Bowl last year if their defense didn't play like the purple people eaters of the Minnesota Vikings in the 70s. That defense was awesome last year in the playoffs, especially against Kansas City. So I give them the most credit for that Super Bowl last year. I agree with you. I think Antonio Brown deserves no more chances. He can still play. He still can run routes. He can still catch the ball. But at some point, as a league, and we as players always heard, protect the shield. Don't make any bad decisions. Protect the shield. It's time for the NFL to protect their own damn shield and stop giving it lip service. He's burned enough bridges, and he lasted longer in Tampa than I thought he would. But enough is enough. I mean, if anybody saw, he did some hour-long podcast the day after he walked off the field shirtless, and this podcast he did was all you need to know. He basically with an indictment on why you should never sign this guy. The three guys sitting down interviewing him appeased him the whole time. Anything he got mad about, they automatically were like, "Oh no, AB, you're the greatest, man. You're the best." And that's the type of people he's had around him his whole life. I don't know if it's mental health. I tend to think it's not. I just think he's been told that he's the greatest by everybody around him as long as he's been playing football, and that's why he is the way he is.
Shanley, if you had him as a teammate, let's just say he was on the 09 Saints, and as a unit, you guys are watching what he did, taking his jersey off, skipping off the field, basically. How would you have felt as a player watching that?
It would have been embarrassing. It would have. First of all, we wouldn't have signed a guy like that. But just say he had snuck through the cracks, and they signed him to a deal, and that happened. I think we would have had a lot of guys apologizing on behalf of our organization, apologizing because it's a black eye on the league. It's a black eye on your league. It's an indictment on what you have as a culture. And I'm surprised more Buccaneers didn't speak out about how embarrassed they were by his actions. Some did, but more were more apologetic towards, does he have something wrong with him, this and that. I think we would have been embarrassed as a team that we had a guy like that in our locker room.
I love what you say about the shield because the NFL is better than Antonio Brown. And I heard somebody say this, and I really agree with this, that, yeah, he may have mental issues or whatever it is, but he's not a good guy either. And I heard Ryan Clark even say, before the perfect hit in Pittsburgh, a lot of people point to that he wasn't right before that, So I have a real problem keeping that guy around. The NFL is better than Antonio Brown on so many levels. Just drives me crazy. I even feel like dirty talking about him in our podcast. Like, why even give that guy more? I'm interested in your perspective. I think our listeners are too. All right, I'm just throwing this out there. It's New Year's. Happy New Year's to you guys. I can't believe it's 2022, man. Unbelievable 2022. Justin Thomas, your New Year's resolution. Do you have one this year?
Oh man,
you didn't know this was coming either. You didn't know.
I didn't. I can't say I've ever been anyone to have a New Year's resolution. I don't know why. This is my philosophy. But if you want to change something, why wait till the beginning of the year to do it?
Oh my God,
just
like that.
I love it.
How about that? Yes,
I love it, and I love it because I'm 100% on board with Justin. I've never been a New Year's resolution guy because I have the same line of thinking. Like, why would I wait for a year, a January 1st date to start something that I should be doing right now? So I'm not a New Year's resolution guy. I don't have one.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at too.
I'm going to make you guys feel guilty because my New Year's resolution was just to be a better friend to both of you. Okay.
Oh.
Well, why were you not giving us your best to begin with?
Because I wanted to hear if you'd say the same thing. That's why. Oh my goodness. Well, that was a good one, man. Saints fans, NFL fans, thanks for hanging with us. It's been a crazy Saints year, but boy, it's never boring. I'll tell you that. But kudos to Sean Peyton, man, for keeping the ship afloat, even when he couldn't coach, man. I got to say, looking back, let's just finish on this, man. Looking back, I got to tell you, it's still to this day, that Bucs game where they shut them out 9-0. I've covered some great Saints games, but boy, that is up there, man. That's one of the best memories, and it's definitely the top memory from this season. Is there a top memory for you, Justin, as we move past this season and look forward to the offseason next year?
Upon watching that game and then reflecting after, to me, that was just a magical game. We've faced so much adversity this season. I don't know how much fans expected, how far we would go. But I just remember exactly what you said, Mike. That's probably one of the best games under Sean Payton's tenure here. And I had this great feeling like I was watching something unique and magical that doesn't happen very often. There's a lot of lows this season, but that was definitely probably the highest for me.
And in true 2021 season fashion, one of our best memories of the Peyton era was a game he wasn't even on the sideline for.
If I had to choose, guys, I agree with you. It was a dominant defensive performance. But when I look back at the 2021 Saints season, that won't be the game I remember. Oh, wow. It will be the game I will remember because I think the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. It's going to be the Packers game in Jacksonville because of the hurricane. You beat down the Green Bay Packers 38-3, and what could have been if Jameis Winston stayed healthy. If we had that team play the whole year, what could have been? That'll be the game I remember.
What do you think, Sean Payton? You know him well. You're connected, Shanley. What do you think Sean Payton thinks to Jameis? I think the advantage the Saints have is that his market value is lower because he wasn't able to show the complete body of work. But I know he likes Jameis Winston. How much does he like Jameis Winston, though? Really?
That's the key is I don't know, love.
Yeah.
And you need to be loved, especially come free agency. You're right. He's probably going to sign a 1-year prove-it deal. The odds are he's going to be back in New Orleans because of the cap issues we have. You're going to sign him to a team-friendly 1-year deal. It depends if somebody else out there wants to sign him, but it's all going to be up to Jameis whether or not he wants to come back. And there's going to be competition now. It's not going to be, hey, it's your job. Taysom Hill played a little bit better. They're going to go out and try to do anything they can to bring in somebody else. So it's going to be a much tougher road for Jameis to be the starting quarterback for the Saints this year.
A lot of uncertainties, but one thing is for certain, it won't be Andrew Luck. That we know. The New Orleans Saints. Moving forward. Justin, where are we on Twitter?
At Dundad Podcast.
And we're on all the platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all of them. So please subscribe, give us feedback, give us a rating. And I got to close on this. I wrote a book, The Brees Way. If you haven't checked it out, it's on Drew Brees and all my conversations with him over the years. I was at a book signing, and I had a fan, Doug Tassin, come up to me in New Orleans, and he said, I'm buying a book because my wife loves your podcast. So a shout out to Manami, who's a huge Scott Shanley fan, and Manami just had a birthday, Shanley. So can you wish Manami a happy birthday?
Happy birthday, Manami. I hope 2022 is a great one. Be blessed. Thank you.
And I don't know if you make New Year's resolutions like me and unlike my partners, Manami, but we wish you the best in the new year. Hope you had a great birthday. But that just shows we never know who's listening. We appreciate all our listeners, and it was great to run into Doug and hear about his wife at my recent book signing. So All right, we'll keep going. In 2022, we'll keep previewing this team, and we'll see what lies ahead in this interesting offseason for the Black and Gold. For Justin Thomas, Super Bowl winning linebacker Scott Shanley, I'm merely Mike Neighbors. Boot out. We'll talk to you down the road.